Oh, I'm going to tell you an interesting story without.
Well, hello, Art.
How are you? Wonderful to see your
Welcome,
face, Robert.
welcome. Very nice to see you. Thank you for taking part in this conversation today. I wanted to make it a little bit different from the interviews I did on Medium, which are very scripted. I wanted it to be a bit more chilled out. You're the first person to sit down and have a conversation. It's great to see you in person. Thank you. Let's
You're
get
welcome.
started, shall we?
Sure.
For those who don't know you, Art, just introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. My name is Art Bram, B-R-A-M. Art is short for Arthur, but I only get called Arthur if I'm in trouble for something, so please don't call me that. I live in New York. I was born in New York, just living in a different part of New York now. I'm 70 years old. I am retired now for a few years, like about 3 years. And I'd say writing is a relatively new pastime for me, like maybe mostly the last 3 years, I would say. But before that, I thought I was a terrible writer, and I don't think I had much to say. I think, without going on too long in this introductory section, I think that one of the most important things about being a good writer is feeling like you have something to say, and feeling like you have something to say of the articles I talk about. It requires, because of the articles I tend to write, because they're personal growth articles, I need to feel like I know myself pretty well and can be helpful to other people. So that's been my experience in the last 3 years. So I keep on writing.
So tell me, why did you decide to start writing? Where did that inspiration come from?
It's a really, really good question. I would say that the main reason why I write, it's a way of connecting to other people, and it's a way of connecting to myself. And that's maybe a little bit hard to explain, but I'll do my best, is that if I'm not writing, I can easily get lost in my neurotic thoughts, my anxiety, things like that, which from your smile, I gather you might relate to, Robert. When I write, that stops. When I write, meaning that I can be in touch with that neurotic part of me, but I'm able to also step out of that part of me and kind of, whereas hopefully my wife will pick that up, excuse me. You might have some editing to do. Okay, I did very well being patient. Anyhow, what I was going to say is that when I write, I'm able to step outside of myself. I believe I may be talking about this more later, but I believe inside me, and I think inside all of us, we have like our way of looking at things and our neuroses and our anxiety, and sometimes giving ourselves a hard time. But I believe all of us have another presence inside us, which is very self-loving and wise and kind. And somehow when I write, I'm able to get in touch with that part of me, and so healing, to be able to view myself with love. So I would say that's my motivation to write. And one other thing I'll add is that I'll say my writing on Medium coincided with COVID, because my wife and we have a very active social life in our community, but everything kind of went to a standstill. So that kind of motivated me to find something to do productive with my time. And writing turned out to be, one of those things. So
I definitely think a lot of people will be able to relate to that. I started writing coming to the end of COVID, I think, really. But I definitely think a lot of people started writing during the pandemic. It's a bit of a shame, I think, coming out. That's where we've seen some of the writers now leave and do other things. But no, very interesting. I definitely think what you've said comes through in your articles 100%. And I think that's why
I'm glad to hear that
so well, because it really does come across that you write from the heart. And for me, it's something that I enjoy reading.
Thank you.
I definitely connect on that level with you 100%.
Mm-hmm.
So that's brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of different platforms on the internet where you could have gone to write on the various platforms, and you may be writing on more than one. But I know for the very least you did choose to write on Medium. Why was Medium your choice of platform to write on?
Yeah, there really isn't any particular reason. I never looked for different platforms to write on. Um, it's funny, it's a little bit off to the side, but I've been having like memory issues related to my age, I suppose. So I couldn't recall why I started on Medium. So I asked my wife, and she said, "Oh, your friend Alex, Anthony, I should say, I told him I think I might like to get into writing, and he suggested Medium. But I do, and that's why I picked it. Not like I was thinking Medium or this or that, but it was just like, all right, it looks good, there's no reason not to. I do want to say that I did, I used to write on another platform, which was very different. Are you familiar with there's a meditation app, very popular, called Insight Timer?
Okay.
And that's very, very, very popular. And I used to just read different articles, and somehow I got motivated to create a discussion group called Live Authentically. And I didn't write long articles there, but it was basically like a few paragraphs about what's up, how meditation's going, just talking about my life. And I got, a very, very good response from that for a while, but after a while it kind of fizzled out. So then I pretty much migrated from the Insight Time and Meditation app to Medium. But what's also interesting is that I named the discussion group, Live Authentically. And then when I got onto Medium, and I forgot what they call it, the user handle, whatever, it's at Live Authentically, which is key for me to say that to you, because there's nothing I value more than living authentically. And that's why I try to write, and that's how I try to be in my interactions, with people. And so I just want to emphasize, that point. And the last thing is I did consider, and maybe I will sometime, writing on Substack. True confessions, I'm more than a bit technophobic, so which is something I really should work on. It just seems like on Medium, a lot of people, I just hear about Substack, all the time. So, we could talk about it at some other point, but I don't know if it's beneficial for me to do that or not.
Something I really couldn't comment on. I agree. There's definitely a lot of writers that mention Substack and various other channels as well. Not something I've done myself, so not something I can comment on, to be honest with you.
Okay.
This is a question I wasn't going to ask, but just
sure.
Just listening to you and your passion about meditation. I don't want to talk about myself too much, so I'm going to leave it to one side. But meditation is something that's recently come into my life, let's say, and something that I've started to enjoy. You're a very popular writer. You've definitely got a hardcore following. Your readers love your work. Have you ever thought about starting your own publication?
Oh, I'm going to tell you an interesting story with leaving out the name of the publication.
Yeah.
But and I'm also aware, not that I'm presuming you would have picked me, but I know you're looking for editors.
Yes.
But what happened was there was another publication that I edited on, and I pretty much got fired, and I never quite understood the reason why.
Okay.
I guess editing is, I don't know if I was told I was being annoying sometimes, or giving writers too hard a time. I'm really not clear. The details don't terribly matter. It's just that it was a painful experience. Okay. And then I just said, I don't need to do, it's not that important for me to be an editor. So, and you didn't ask me about editing, you asked me about starting a publication. Yeah. And then it's like, I got to hire have editors, and I don't know, it's like I don't think it's worth the potential complication in my life.
So the next question I want to ask about is not necessarily how you write your articles, but the setting. Do you go to a specific room in the house? Do you write outside? Do you have a bit of music playing in the background? Do you kind of write on a pen and paper first and transfer it onto the computer? How do you write? What's your setting? What's your method?
I write. I'm sorry. Did you finish what you said?
I mean, just what's your method from, I guess, the initial thoughts to actually getting it onto the screen and publishing?
Okay. Well, I do write. I write like where I'm sitting right now, which is as I'm sitting on the den, in the den, on my couch. I have a little stool, a bench in front of me, and the laptop's on the bench. And so that's where I always write. And sometimes I'm blessed to have she's not here now, my black cat Maddox beside me. So if I'm getting stressed at all, I could stroke her fur, and she never complains. But so that's where I write. But I think you were asking more than I always write directly in Medium. I just create a draft. I go directly to Medium and I create a draft, and then I copy and paste it into another draft, and then I copy and paste it into another draft. Although you don't technically have to, do that, whatever. Because basically I end up doing a lot of rewrites. So I end up by the time I'm submitting an article, I have like 6 drafts to get rid of. But does that fully answer your question, or?
Yeah. It was really about the setting. And do you tend to write first thing in the morning? Do you tend to write last thing at night, or?
I tend to start to write first thing in the morning, and when I was really writing more frequently than I am now, because I'm retired and my wife manages to keep busy doing other stuff, then I was writing like 5-6 hours a day.
Wow.
I don't know how. One thing I'll say on writing is that it blows me away how some people, well, I'm thinking of a name, but it doesn't really matter, can write like 2 or 3 articles a day sometimes, and they're really good quality. Because what I do find in the writing process is that I don't know if I'm just setting my bar high, but I need to read through my article multiple times with a fresh pair of eyes. I just don't see, it takes me that many times to recognize that, to pick up on places where it could flow better, to pick up on redundancies, to pick up on just the power of the the other big thing. I have a habit, because I have so much to say, that I can easily make have one article, but it looks like 3 articles. So I have to be very careful to only cover one topic. And the other thing, which I'm I pretty much, my last several articles, I keep them to 5, 6 minutes. But sometimes it takes a bit of work to cut it down to that, because I don't want to write a 7. I don't like reading 7 or 8 minute articles anymore. I just I think a lot of readers, and now I'm one of them, if they see an article over 5-6 minutes, they don't even think about reading it, because they just don't want to spend the time. So anyhow, it takes time to cut down the article contents.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that. You probably know I went on a course run by Sinem, and one of the things that she spoke about was editing your articles.
Right.
That she writes an article and then edits it maybe 3 or 4 times before actually publishing the article.
Right.
And of course, she's 60,000 followers plus and making $5,000 a month, and so on and so forth. And she said that it really is worth spending the time. Don't write and just post. What she really does, and I've started doing as well, is writing an article, editing it, sleeping, waking up the next day and edit it again, and edit it maybe a 3rd time. So I definitely think the quality of your work shines through. I agree. I don't know how some people write 2 or 3 a day, and some of them are really good quality as well.
Yeah, there's somebody, the last name's Dake, Dake. I can't remember her name now.
Okay, I know. Yeah.
She's a very nice person. She writes really good articles.
Yeah.
I don't know how she does it. Nicole, the first name is Nicole, I think.
That's right, I do know. Yeah, I mean, I know there's this is not referred to Nicole now, but I know there's some conversation going around Medium about AI articles, and how clever they are, where artificial intelligence writes the articles for you. So that's something interesting. I think we're starting to see some more of that on Medium. Unfortunately, we've had to ban a few people for
I'm
that.
laughing. Can artificial intelligence produce articles with with a real heart?
Yeah, well, they tend to be more about currency. They tend to be more money related that we
Yeah,
find.
well, yeah, I can imagine.
So
Yeah,
definitely not personal stories. That's not what
right.
we've seen anyway. But yeah, we've seen quite a lot of it over the past month or so. And then we've got a private editing group, and we've spoken about that quite a lot. And like I said, we've had to say thank you but no thanks, and ban a
Gotcha.
few writers because of that. So I think it's interesting that you brought up that topic. But okay,
Oh, before I forget, I also want to say I know I helped you a while back
you
with
did.
editing some article,
Yeah,
and I don't know, the last several months I'm reading your articles, and man, you're a damn good writer.
thank you. I'll edit that out. Don't worry.
No, I'm being
Thank you
serious.
very
It's
much.
like, not that I'm the number one person to evaluate, but
Yeah, yeah,
it's like your articles just flow, they're smooth. And what I love, you'll probably ask me later on about this, but I love articles which I feel like I'm in a room with the person. They're being sincere, authentic, and that's how your articles flow.
yeah.
They just, your personality comes into it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, I write a lot of personal stories, so they're not difficult because they're real life situations.
Right.
I find them easy, well, not always easy to talk about, but when it's a personal story, for me, it flows very easily onto paper.
Gotcha. That's interesting. Yeah.
So, Art, you've been on Medium quite some time now. What do you think, if any, are the differences from when you first started on Medium to what it is today?
It's possible I'm oblivious, but I don't notice that much difference. One thing I'll say, which is, since the recent changes, which I don't pretend to understand all of them, but it was very interesting. My last article, it did very well. I got like 60, 70 fans, a whole bunch of over 50 comments, I think.
Wow.
So I was very thrilled with the reception. I think two things are interesting. One thing is that most of the readers were new readers, like people I never heard of, which means that somehow my article was distributed, if that's the word, to people who weren't normally seeing it, which I was really happy, because the people who know me, or especially people who subscribe, there's a good chance they'll read my stuff anyhow. But it was actually working in my favor, because all of a sudden I got all these new people. So, maybe I'm just lucky. I do find it, I don't know if infuriating is the word, but let's say frustrating, how Medium just decides to do stuff without explaining it. Especially the curation thing. I don't get that at all. So I mean, I think I don't care that much, because I'm not dependent upon Medium for an income. It's not like I was making $5,000 a year and now it's going down to 2,000. I don't know if it'll even affect my income, but it frustrates me. And I don't know if this is really a change per se, but maybe it was always this way. Why Medium doesn't explain why they do things? Like, it should be a partnership. Why wouldn't they tell you? Why is the algorithm secret? I guess because people are just going to figure out the algorithm.
Try to manipulate it, I guess. Yeah.
I guess, but it's just, my sense is they could do a whole bunch of better job.
I do agree. I think Medium's a great platform. I think they could perhaps look at communication, the way things are communicated. But yeah, okay. It's just really interesting to get your thoughts, because I do see a lot of articles, and some are positive, some are negative. I don't want to be drawn into those, but it's always nice to get the thoughts of a fellow writer. So I guess following on from that question, because of some of the changes, I've spoke about myself. There's been large publications closing, and some of the top writers leaving. Clearly, one of the major factors is going from lockdown back into nearly the world of reality, I guess. There or thereabouts, certainly in the UK we are. Have you ever thought about leaving Medium, or are you here for the long term?
I would say well, let's put it this way. I don't know if I'm here for the long haul. I'm saying that because the last month or so, my writing has really dwindled. But if I'm not here for the long haul, that has nothing to do, or that part has nothing to do with Medium.
Yeah.
It just has to do with whatever other reasons, which are kind of besides the point of the question, which may result in my writing less. But I will say that if I look at from a Medium perspective, that as long as the level of engagement I get from readers stays pretty much the same, then I'm in it for the long haul. And I want to be clear that by engagement, I don't mean claps. I don't mean reads or those related to reads. What I mean is that every one of my articles gets, I'll throw a number out there, at least 20, 25 meaningful comments. Not like, oh, nice article, great article. So basically, if I can still get that type of feedback, then I'm in it for the long haul. To phrase it another way, if I don't get comments from people, then I might as well just, why am I writing? I have no reason to think that my words mean anything to anybody. So I may as well just write a journal and keep it to myself.
It's kind of nice to hear, because again, you're going back to your philosophy of community and spirit and building relationships and friendships. And what I like as well is, yes, you say you talk about yourself, but you're almost telling a story within a story, because I guess to some degree, people are following you and your life, almost like a series, isn't it? Getting to know you better. And hopefully that fills you with a bit of warmth as well, knowing that you've got this strong community following you, and your life and your stories. So yeah, it definitely goes back to that community feel. So so
that's the answer. As long as I can maintain that community feel, and I mean both ways, that I'm getting feedback and there are people who respond to the feedback I give to them, in a way that they sense my presence and caring, then I'm good.
Brilliant. So how do you stay so positive? Because you are a positive person. I think that you're very thoughtful, particularly with comments. We've mentioned comments before, but how do you stay positive with the things that are going on in Medium, and there's different stories you write and read? You're positive. Where does that come from? Is that inbuilt? Is that something you've learned yourself, or is that life?
It's a complicated question to answer.
Okay.
There's just different ways to approach it. Like I kind of wrote a note to myself that when the question, as you wrote out to me originally, was, how do you keep so positive? And my first words that I wrote down was, you're joking, right?
Okay.
All my articles, I'm talking about some neuroses, So, but what I do want to say is that I'm going to tell you a way that my articles are therapeutic.
Okay.
If I wasn't writing and I was just thinking about things that bother me, it's hard for me to get out of a negative state of mind. When I write, then first of all, as I said to you before, it enables me to contact this presence. I call it my inner loving parent. It's like the loving, wise, supportive parent I never had when I was a kid, but I can contact that presence. So, and that's reflected, and that's a positive presence. It's like a loving, think about it, any loving parent, what are they going to be? Positive,
I find that interesting. So I think differently too. So you think that your writing is negative?
Here's what, I won't quite say that. Okay. I'll say that my writing, I won't say that my writing is negative, but what I will say is that my writing doesn't it's not exactly an accurate reflection of how well I'm doing in life.
Okay. No,
what I mean is that a lot of times I write about the person I aspire to be.
Okay. I do sometimes, actually.
Excuse me?
No, I say I do that sometimes as well. So
right.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. So basically, I'm feeling down and I'm looking to uplift myself. So that makes my writing more positive. So sometimes it's like I reread my articles, and some little part of me feels like, oh my God, I'm such a phony. Or people give me comments saying, oh my God, you're doing so great in life. And I'm thinking, I'm struggling, in many
I,
ways.
as a
But
reader of your work, though, and I know you do that. I
right,
appreciate what you're saying, that you talk about how you could become a better person and better this and
right,
better that.
right.
But I read that as being really positive, and that's what I meant by that comment. How do you keep so positive? I understand it might not be from coming from the best place initially, but you still got to have such a positive mindset to think of perhaps where you want to get to. So
I'm
that's what I
touched.
mean by
I'm
being
moved.
positive.
I'm moved, emotionally moved by that comment,
Yeah,
which means you nailed it.
yeah. Because that's what
Yeah.
I see. Regardless of the content, which is absolutely outstanding, you seem to put a positive spin on it that I guess is inspiring. And you're thinking, well, yeah, I appreciate that, and I know where he's coming from, and perhaps I could do that too. And that's what I mean by positivity, is you always find, for me, a solution.
Right.
And you seem to come out, or when I read it, you seem to come out the other side. You seem to see the light at the end of the tunnel, let's say. And that's what I meant by being positive.
Right. I hear you very clearly. I appreciate those words. I think a lot of it is about, um, I'm totally, I totally buy into the concept that whatever issues I have, whatever things I struggle with, and I'm trying to learn how to handle better, basically it boils down to finding ways to be kinder to myself and sometimes being kinder to other people. Believe me, I don't write about all the nasty stuff I do.
No, I know.
You know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah.
I don't, write about everything. But the point of what I'm saying is that what I'm very positive about is that nobody and no situation can stop me from actualizing my best self. It's all in my hands. Doesn't mean it's easy, but nobody can stop me. And that's a positive thought,
Brilliant.
and it's, it keeps me going. And, but sometimes, and when I write, when I'm not writing, I forget that. I think like, oh my God, I can't handle this. I can't handle that. When I do my writing, it could be writing an article on Medium. It could be, I have a form of journaling, which I think I've written about, maybe read, or I could, basically I go to Google Docs. I open up a file.
Yeah.
And what I do is I type in the initials LP, and LP stands for loving parent. And the first thing I write, I just write LP : hey, what's up? And then next thing I'm typing HC, which I refer to my healing child. And then I talk about whatever issues I have. And I have this whole dialogue. And, the point is that my loving parent, I guess I call it, that voice is like my higher power. And it's kind of inspired from situations in the work I do in myself and other people I talk with, but it's in me. It's my voice. It's that loving voice. It's that voice that says I can do anything. And I'm just, I may be struggling, but there's always a way to, be more loving and self-accepting and just move forward, whatever I'm struggling with. I feel like I'm getting a little wordy here. I hope you get
No,
the
do you know
gist of what I'm
what? I
saying.
was just thinking to myself, thank you so much for sharing that, your thoughts, because I wasn't expecting to go this deep. And I really appreciate you really opening up. Do you find writing really therapeutic?
Do I find writing therapeutic?
Yeah.
It's yes,
Yeah.
extremely.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't really add every single time, literally, and I've actually written this, that as soon as when I journal, especially when I journal, as soon as I type in LP : I feel better.
Yeah.
Because I've reached outside of my struggles and my neurotic and anxious brain, and I've reached to this other voice in my head, which is very loving and knows that, like, it's just, how do I say it? It's like I've grown to know that even when I'm really caught up in all my struggles, that there's always an answer. I'm just being neurotic. It's not like if I think somebody hates me, it doesn't mean they really hate me. Here's the best way to express it. It's a storyline.
Yeah.
I have a hard time dropping the storyline. That's what I'm working on, but it's false. It's create amazingly fictional. I should be a writer of fiction. If I'm talking about my life, and if I'm talking about what I think other people think of me, whatever, I could be a great writer of fiction, you know?
Do you ever start writing an article then and kind of think you're going to go in one direction, and all of a sudden you start detouring off and go into another direction? Have you ever done that?
Well, I think only in the sense that I can't think of an example where I'm writing on one topic and my mind is so busy and I have something else really important. I turn one article into 3 articles.
Yeah.
And obviously nobody wants to read that. And not only that, if I look at it, well, I want to get 3 articles out there. Rather I'll get a whole bunch more readers if I have 3 4-minute articles than 1 12-minute article.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant.
But actually, I do find writing to be therapeutic, and it's because I get in touch with, I guess I call my higher self.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It's fantastic. That was amazing. That was an amazing.
I do want to say, I don't know if this is turning things around too much, but maybe I'd edit the questions at the end if we have time. But you've had I can't remember. I don't know your whole life story, but there's a lot of stuff you've been through. And I got to imagine that you've done a lot of work on yourself. And I'm curious how that's reflected. I'm curious how your writing helps you, is therapeutic, because I've sensed that it is.
Yeah,
you didn't expect me to turn the table on you.
I'm quite a deep person.
I know.
I've had a very loving upbringing. My mum and dad were both really hard working. My dad was working in the steel works. Was quite quite a hard man. It was black and white. There was no grey. Okay. My mum was completely passive, completely opposite of my dad. She was very intelligent. She owned a few businesses. She actually had an accident and was in hospital from the age of 12 to the age of 19.
Wow.
Come out and got into an accountancy firm and never looked back since. I lost my parents when I was quite young, I would suggest. And if I'm honest, I've always struggled with that. And I think since my son was born, which I've written about, I started to grow up. I was not ready to be a dad. I've gone through a lot of my life. There's probably another 100 stories I could tell. I've got myself into a lot of situations, and probably the hardest thing that I've written about is finding out how to bond with my daughter, my second daughter. And I actually wrote the second part of that this evening before coming.
I didn't hear every word you said about what with your second daughter.
Yeah, probably the hardest article I've written about was not being able to bond with my daughter.
Oh, wow.
Which is my second daughter.
That's right.
And it was one of my very, very early stories, and I wrote the second part tonight before coming online. I don't want to go too much into myself because this is about you.
No, that's okay. I didn't want to.
This is about you today.
I was just curious, like how you find writing therapeutic.
I wear my heart on my sleeve, and that probably comes across. I wouldn't consider myself a fantastic writer, personally. I'm not very well educated, but I do put a lot of hard work in. So yeah, I'm not sure whether I'll add that to our conversation.
No, that's okay. I mean, I was just curious because, but I do know it's quite obvious you wear your heart on your sleeve, and that's why I like reading your articles, because that's the articles I always like to read.
A lot of the articles I write, I feel in pain writing some of them.
Right.
sometimes I'm writing. I tend to do it when my family aren't in. My wife's at work, my kids are away or something, or in school, because you would not believe the amount of times I'm writing and I'm in floods of tears writing my articles. I'm bawling in tears.
That's, by the way, this may surprise you by saying it, but I think that's wonderful. I bet that makes your pieces more powerful, don't you think?
Yeah, my dad always told me that crying was not the thing to do. You have to be hard. You're a man. You can't do that.
Right.
And my mum said the opposite. So,
Right.
whilst I had a very loving upbringing, it was a little bit confusing as well, because
Right.
parents had different philosophies. Do your family read your articles? Do they know you're on Medium? Do you get support from them? Is it something they like you to do? You don't have to answer the question, by the way, but I was just curious about family and friends, because the reason I say my wife is knows I write, and she's the only person who really knows I write. But I just wondered your situation.
Okay, I don't mind answering the question. At this point in time, I only share my articles with my wife and some close friends.
Yeah.
I can't, again, my memory's not great these days, but I do believe that I did share an article, maybe two, with I have an older brother and older sister.
Oh,
and
wow.
if I had to guess, they said, "Oh, nice article," but they don't get it, you know. It's like I feel like I never entered into a conversation with them, but I think and I write introspectively, and I don't get the impression neither of them write, and I don't get the impression either of them particularly think introspectively, which, by the way, does not imply I'm a better person or my life's more together. Maybe it's the opposite. I don't know. It's just that, because I don't want to go off into another topic, but I've often wondered, I don't know, they don't seem quite as neurotic as I am, you know? But that'd be a whole other topic. So basically, I don't think they get me. And sometimes, like occasionally, I'll share articles with other people, and I can kind of tell based upon the feedback from that article whether it pays to, whether they're really interested in more articles. So, and the other thing I think one thing in your original question was, have other people considered joining Medium as a result of reading my articles? And I do, like pretty much across the street from me, I have a neighbor who happens to be an English teacher, and I kind of exposed him to Medium and helped him learn the ropes, so to speak. And he's pretty excited about writing on Medium. So does that answer your question? Okay.
I hope you got the referred membership.
Oh shoot! Damn, that could have been my one and only one. I'm still waiting for coffee. Nobody's got me a cup of coffee, I swear.
Wow, that surprises me.
I don't even drink coffee, but that's besides. Maybe that's why they know I don't drink coffee.
So, Art, we're coming towards the end of our conversation.
Sure.
I would say that you're an inspirational writer. You've been on Medium some time now and got a really solid following. If someone was about to join Medium, what advice would you give them, if any?
If somebody, I didn't hear the first part of your sentence.
Yeah, so if somebody was just about to join Medium as a newbie writer, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, I gave a lot of thought to that. First of all, you need to offer, this is kind of an obvious point, but you need to offer something of value to your readers. And you better make that obvious in your title and subtitle, because you could write the best article in the world, but as you know, nobody's going to read it if they're scanning through titles and subtitles, and yours just doesn't, motivate them to read it. I would stress, especially if your goal is to write self-growth articles, you don't have to be any kind of expert to give suggestions. Just be yourself, be your authentic self, you don't even have to be this. I just thought of this at the moment, that there are writers, you have to write well enough, especially if you're writing personal growth stories, you have to write well enough that your writing doesn't get in the way of your message coming across. because I mean, I'm pretty sure that you would agree with me. I'm curious of your feedback, that you've written pieces that, well, you know, certain writers that, yeah, they could write better, you know, but yet the content is so powerful and it's so written from the heart that it's very easy to be very forgiving. But there's still some bar you have. It can't be like some, you know, it can't be all over the place, but,
Yeah.
you know, just feel confident. If you have something to say, you know, you'll learn to write better with time. But, you know, it doesn't have to be anywhere near perfect if you have a real message to get across. Yeah, the words I've written out was your authenticity, your honesty, your vulnerability are more than enough to make your piece, you know, worthy of reading. You have to write in a relatable manner. So I'll write about myself, but if I was like writing about an experience that nobody could relate to, it's not worth writing about, you know, for the most part, because it's not relatable. And also to make sure you engage with your readers. When somebody comment, I mean, I sometimes don't respond to comments, but do your best, because I'm just too many things coming in, but do your best to respond to every comment, especially those that the reader has really put a lot of thought into, you know? But I don't even think of it like, when I think about doing that, I don't think that I'm doing that in order to get like I don't think of my primary motivation of doing that to get more readers or to get them to be a consistent reader, although of course I want that.
Yeah.
How about us being a nice person?
Yeah.
How about us being a good person? You know, that's a kind thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
You touched on titles just then, and I know we previously had a conversation on Medium about titles. Do you choose a title and run with it, or do you often change your title? What's your thought process on titles?
Man, it's tough.
Mm-hmm.
I know when I think I pretty much know when it sucks, and I know when it's good, you know? And sometimes it's like the content of the article is like really, really good. And it's a struggle to have the title and subtitle. I think you know, just reflect, you know, the contents of the article. It's hard to fit emotion into 15 words, you know, like it's an art, you know, and I do struggle with it sometimes. I don't think, I think I'm overall, and feel free to share your opinion. I think overall I'm pretty good at it, you know. I'm sure that I'd say I'm good at it, but it's a lot of work, and some people are better at it than me, you know. Um, I'm not sure what else to say about it.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I literally sometimes write an article, put a title up, and I'll stick with it. But I'm finding more, probably in the last 3 or 4 months, that I'm constantly changing my title. And sometimes I'm literally just about to hit publish. And I think, no, I can make this slightly better. And I don't know whether I'm overthinking the titles. Probably I am. So I just wanted to get, you know, sort of your feeling on that, so to speak. So
well,
it's just interesting, you know.
it's funny. One thing, I don't know if this would be, um, I'm not quite sure how I would go about doing this, and I'm open to your suggestions, but it would be very helpful for me to be in a group of, you know, 20, 25 writers, where the service we do with for each other is to give feedback on each other's titles, you know?
Yeah.
You know, something like that, you know?
Yeah. No.
Of course, you got to risk, you know, you might think something's good and not be appreciative of the 20 people who tell you, you know, could be better. But
Do you know what? I think if that was to happen and you were engaging with writers you respect, even if you didn't necessarily agree with them, I don't think you'd be put out, because the very
no,
reason
I
you're
think so.
speaking
No,
to
not
them
really.
is you respect them and respect their opinion. I'm always fairly receptive to feedback,
Right,
and
right.
I think you are too.
Yeah,
So
overall,
I
yeah.
think it's
Yeah.
interesting. I think it's interesting.
Yeah, I also think that's another thing. If I read a really good title and subtitle, whatever, I tell the writer,
Do you? I
'Cause
think
that's
to myself, I wish I'd come up with that myself.
what?
I think to myself, I wish I'd come up with it. There are some articles I've read and some titles I'm thinking, oh,
Yeah.
I wish
No,
I'd
but
got that title.
it's like, I don't know. I feel best about myself. Again, this is maybe going off topic, when I'm being kind to other people. And I know what other writers want. The writers want to know that two things. They wrote the piece well, and that, especially because I read personal growth stories, that it was well written and they expressed something, like some emotion or some feeling, or that it was helpful to me as a reader. And I meticulously comment on that, and the writers love it, they really appreciate it.
Well, that's great. I think we're coming to the end of it now, our
Wait,
conversation,
I have
which makes
questions for
me
you.
very, very sad. Oh, go on. I was just going to ask, is there anybody you wanted to give a big shout out to? There's probably too many for you to mention, but is there anyone you want to give a shout out to?
Well, I'll start out by, do you know this guy, Robert Ralph, by any chance?
Yeah.
I'll give you a shout out.
He's some small timer. Yeah, I know.
Well,
he thinks he's good, but he's not.
No need to be modest. I love people who are genuine, authentic, and kind, and that's reflected, and interesting, and that's reflected in your writing and in this, time we've had together.
Yeah.
I'd have to think of, there's a woman, I think she's sober. She was sober vegan, Michelle Mays.
Oh, I know her. Yeah, I do know her.
Yeah.
We commented on an article tonight, so yeah, I do. She's brilliant.
Oh my God. There's more than I could, because I wasn't prepared, so I probably have 5 or 10 easily. Donette, right? Anglin.
Okay. Yeah. It's okay.
Debbie Fiore.
Yeah, we often connect.
Such wonderful people.
Yeah,
so that's just a few. Oh, and I love, and Sahil, who has his own, publication.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about. Just such a nice person.
You're a gentleman, you're a scholar. Thank you for being a friend. And I've really, really enjoyed the interview. So thank you very much for your time. And I shall speak to you very soon, my friend.
Yes, you are definitely, I definitely consider you a friend.
Good.
I won't even